Hello and welcome to our extra special conversation to connect. Let's get real talk powered by exceptional connections and featuring my guest, the amazing Debbie Page. Yay. So as we celebrate our 50th episode, it also brings us full circle as our conversation to connect was originally launched March 10th. 2020. Remember that week, everybody?
Yeah.
And Debbie Page was my guest for that first conversation to connect. That was the week we were all told to shelter in place, and the term social distancing came into our vocabulary and our consciousness. I remember when Debbie mentioned that for the first time, I'm like, where did that come from? I've never heard that before. And then we heard it a lot. So in the course of these 50 episodes, we've encouraged and supported our community to stay connected during these challenging and uncertain times. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. And at Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. So each month we nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice and take notes, and be sure to add comments and questions in the chat box to engage with us during our thought-provoking conversation. And around the 45-minute mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share their ahas, epiphanies, and of course, we want to invite you to enter into our thought-provoking conversation. So as I get started, I want to invite you to set aside distractions and invest your attention to the conversation that's about to unfold. Look for just one idea that you can take away and put into action so you don't cheat yourself out of the time you've invested here. And so our conversation to connect this week is with the brilliant, wise, and witty Debbie Page from Black Diamond. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, my friend. Can you believe that? Like, I remember when you said this last week at the event, that this is the 50th conversation. And I think, from that first one that we had when the world definitely shifted, till now, all the things that changed and were different, and yet how many things stayed the same, right? And among them, I give a lot of credit to you, with Exceptional Connections and your just real commitment to making sure that people stayed connected. And so even though we weren't able to, meet in restaurants and, shake hands and hug and do all the things, you really did an amazing job. I think better than any organization that I was a part of, in terms of maintaining a very intentional relationship with the Exceptional Connections community. So you deserve a lot of credit, my dear. I know, buoyed a lot of people over the last 3 years, essentially, when things were very different.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me, especially coming from you. And I know that you know the pains of having an organization, being the executive managing director of eWomen for 5 years.
Oh.
So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, I'm just grateful for our community and glad we can be able to have, different ways to be able to come together for our live events and for our virtual events as well. So the topic that you shared with our community at our November event is something that's going to spill over to today, and we're going to have more time to really delve into it and hear from you. So we're going to be talking about making the most of difficult situations, changing economy, changing times, which is such an important conversation right now. So before we get going, I want to be able to take a moment to introduce you to our listeners who may not know you, and for those who want to really understand what you're up to these days. Really, we're so grateful for you and your passion for supporting women to keep more of the money they make.
Yeah.
So Debbie Page is an internationally recognized and award-winning entrepreneur, business coach, profitability mentor, and advocate for women's economic independence, and is recognized as leading authority on cash flow for women in business. Woohoo! And for 2 decades, Debbie has worked with women and money and has acquired, scaled, and sold 2 businesses of her own. Her clients achieve stunning success with profitability because of her commitment to accountability, execution, and systems, and processes that create sustainable and scalable businesses. So Debbie is also the proud pet parent to the Muppets, Buster, a 9-year-old black lab, and recently retired K9, is that right?
Yeah.
And Walter, a 1-year-old black lab. So welcome again, Debbie, and thank you for joining us.
I love it. Thanks so much, Cyndi. Yeah, and Walter is over my shoulder right there. He's nudged over his pillow that says reserved for the dog. And so he's decided, I move around where I work depending on the day. And they've decided that this is a fun room to hang out in while I'm working. And there's a day bed back there that I put in during COVID because it was just a lovely, cocoony place to rest and to take a nap or to read and just kind of unplug. And they've now decided that it's a really great dog bed. So I'm sure you'll see Buster milling around here in a minute, but yeah, they're pretty special. So yeah, so Buster is a retired Washington State Patrol bomb dog. So his technical title, K9 is like their officer name. So yeah, so thanks for having me, Cyndi. I love being here. I love this community, and I just feel really honored when I am invited to share thoughts and ideas with the people here at Exceptional Connections.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I think it's really appropriate as we celebrate our 50th, episode and coming full circle here, that you just gonna share with our community, what's going on, because we're all still feeling like we're in limbo, in many regards. And so, kind of transition from the intro I gave and share with our listeners a little bit more about your journey, and then we'll jump right into the content.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And I know many of you, have known me for a long time. And then, there's some people here now and who will listen later who were newer friends. So thank you for joining in. My journey is probably not unlike many of yours. I have always considered myself an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I think I want to start a business. It's sort of like evolved. I was in a thing, doing a thing, and then an opportunity presented itself and I said yes. And so, kind of the journey of the entrepreneur, which is you just keep saying yes. And then one day you're a business owner. And then you're trying to scratch your head and think like, wait a minute, I was a really good practitioner and technician, but now how do I become like business owner? Where does that hat come on? And so for 26 years, Cyndi, I've been doing that. I've realized I have been half my life now completely self-employed and as a small business owner, which I'm super excited about. I started in financial services 26 years ago, had an opportunity to acquire a book of business and built and scaled that into the multiple 7-figure arena. So did the thing that less than 2% of women business owners do, cross that $1 million mark. I learned a lot. I surrounded myself with a lot of really smart people who knew a lot more than I did about growing and scaling and then ultimately selling businesses. Which allowed me to fracture off a portion of that company and keep it so that I was doing exclusive financial planning just by myself with individual women who were suddenly single, divorced, or recently widowed. And a lot of them were starting businesses or they were inheriting businesses and, they had questions about it. And so that was really where the genesis of my coaching started now 12 years ago, is recognizing that, we can have great bookkeepers, we can have great accountants, but to actually have somebody who can sit on the same side of the table as us and talk about cash flow, profitability, pricing, really getting into the meat of our operations, our systems, our processes, that was a space that was really missing. So I've been doing that now for 12 years, working one-on-one with women-owned business exclusively. During the pandemic, I started to get more inquiries, which I found really interesting. So it was the, friend of the friend network, which we all love so much. That's what we aspire for as business, is that you get these inquiries from people who have done work with you and have had great results or great experience, and they want to tell other people about you. And I started to get inquiries from what I would consider still small businesses, but they had more moving components. So where so much of my work had been, one-on-one with, other women business owners who were, say, less than 5 employees, right? So it was them, maybe a couple of virtual support staff, and maybe a couple of local people. My inquiry started growing to companies that had 20, 50, 100 people, where you had typically a CEO and another leader who knew that with the pandemic, things were going to start shifting really fast. And they didn't have enough internal support to help guide and make decisions with them. So I found myself during the pandemic doing, contract work for, say, 6 months or 9 months in the space of, fractional COO, fractional CRO. So working in the chief revenue officer space, translating what the numbers are trying to tell to the CEO so that then we can all communicate with marketing and sales and make sure that everybody is on the same path. And so I considered myself a bit of a translator during a lot of that. And it's been really enlightening work. I didn't recognize fully until the pandemic, the space that exists and the need for fractional work like I can do. So it's just really opened up new opportunities for me. And I think for all of us as business owners, that's sort of the interesting evolution of business, right? So a lot of, coaches in my space may take a philosophy of to grow, they're going to launch products and programs, right? And follow that path. And that is one path for growth. And then, I really found this landing in my lap, where this opportunity to do more intense fractional work. And, the interesting part about that too, is it allowed me to roll up my sleeves. And I don't know about you guys, but, during the pandemic, I asked myself a lot of questions, including what's it all about? Why am I doing this? We really all had some time to think about what is it in all aspects all about. And what I was recognizing was that in my coaching work, I wanted to roll up my sleeves and I wanted to do more of the work instead of, coaching and, standing on the sidelines and working with the clients to give them the next best step they should take, which we got great results with and we still continue to. I wanted to find a way to balance that, where I was the one actually being able to say to the leader of the organization, these are the 6 things you need to do. This is the order they need to occur in, and here's how we're going to get there. Oh, and P.S., I'm going to lead the charge on this. And that became really interesting and liberating in a way that I hadn't anticipated. So yeah, so that's, kind of in a nutshell, the last 3 years of, of the life, and, how, again, businesses will continue to evolve. They're going to continue to evolve for all of us here as we, navigate, different economic time, which we're going to talk more about today. And so, yeah, so that's what I've been up to, team.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful. Thanks for bringing us up to speed. And what I really love is you just illustrated what you said earlier about saying yes. And so the power of saying yes in our businesses and how we never know where that's going to lead us. And, I love that in saying yes, you were able to grow your skill sets. You were able to roll up your sleeves and do something that was near and dear to your heart. And, if we recognize the power in saying yes, and instead of the fear of that door, walking through that door, right? So I think that's just a great segue here.
Yeah, 100%. The first person who reached out to me said, we need a fractional COO and we need them to start yesterday. Do you do that? And I said, I've never officially done fractional work, and, so again, from an integrity standpoint, I haven't officially, and tell me what you're looking for, right? And so that's the other piece I think for all of us to remember is, we don't have to do the fake it till you make it, like, oh yeah, I've done fractional work my whole life, like, rah, rah, rah. Like, no, just be real, and if it hadn't been the right thing for them, and if it hadn't been the right match and fit, the worst thing that would have happened is, 2 great, communities of people, myself and this other organization, would have met, enjoyed each other and become resources for each other going forward. But yeah, Cyndi, saying yes to things, it's that yes and, which I think is the opportunity for entrepreneurs instead of the yes but. And so I find myself saying a lot these days, yes and.
Right. But you're being in integrity, saying, I haven't operated in that role, but in being able to ask for more information, you could say, but I can do this.
Yeah,
I have the
absolutely.
skill sets to be able to do this.
Yeah, and I think
So,
that's important for all of us to remember when our clients are saying they need something, or if they're asking us if we do something, especially among women, our tendency is to discount our skills, our innate skills, talents, and abilities. And instead, if we can learn to hit a pause button, and men, don't. In my observation, don't have this as much as women, but we tend to really downplay what we can do. Whereas, most men I know are like, yeah, I can totally do that. They're just like, sure, why not? And for women, if we can take a step back and get curious and ask more questions, getting people to open up and tell us what they're looking for, because sometimes what they're trying to say they need isn't exactly translating for what you're hearing. But if you can give them a little more time to talk it out, you can pull through and be like, oh gosh, yeah, these are absolutely things that I can do for you, and let me line this out for you. And it also gives you the opportunity to say, you know what, 50% of what you're talking about, I can totally do. 50% of it, nah, absolutely not. Right. So like in my case, you might bring me in as a COO on a fractional basis, and one of your big issues is marketing and sales. Now, I can help you create the marketing plan, create a point of execution on that marketing plan, and help you build it out. But what I'm not going to do is write your content, right? So if you're looking for that, then we're going to have to either find someone in your organization, or we're going to need to subcontract that out, right? So just being really clear about, once they tell you what they're looking for, being clear on the spaces that you can fit in, for sure. But yeah, just keep saying yes, guys. Great opportunities continue to happen when you do that.
wow. Okay. So here's the deal. If we stop the conversation right now, there's a ton of value to the listeners, because what you shared, the difference between how men and women kind of posture themselves in different situations, is reality. I've read articles and I've heard that a lot. And so that's a good reminder to all of us to ask questions and be able to see where we can be a contribution to others. So, okay, let's jump in.
Okay,
We've
let's
got
go.
making the most of difficult situations. We certainly still have a changing economy and changing times. Things haven't settled down yet. So take us from there.
Yeah. So for those of you who were able to attend, we talked, I started the talk by asking how many people, believed we were heading into a recession, how many people believe we are already in a recession, right? Because I think that there's some level setting. Hi, Danny. I think there's some level setting that I wanted to do. And again, my background in, finance, working on the brokerage side of things, the last recession, in 2008, I was eyeballs deep into it. I had made the decision in the fall of 2007 to sell off the significant chunk of my company. And I signed on that deal in the spring of 2008. And by the fall of 2008, everyone was talking about how we were in a recession, when the fact of the matter was we'd already been in a recession for several months. And so this is the piece that I want, and I bring it up because I want everyone to understand, don't be afraid of it. Be aware of it and make your good decisions about your marketing, your best practices, your offerings. But don't be afraid of it. Just be aware of it, and also be prepared for messaging when it comes to the people who you are serving and the people who connect to you as well, who are maybe in adjacent industries. Maybe they refer business to you, so that you're really using a lot of similar language. It helps make everyone's, customers and clients easier. So one of the things Cyndi asked me to share, when I did the talk last week, she asked me to remind everyone again what the definition of a recession is, right? So we're going to use this as kind of our, this is the definition of a recession. It's defined as a prolonged period of economic downturn that is widespread and significant. Typically, it's lasting for 6 months or longer. Because of that, 6 months or longer, recessions are often recognized after, right? So not in, but after a country's GDP declines for 2 consecutive quarters. And if we remember from, high school economics, GDP, right, gross domestic product, if we go back, right? And so my belief, I'm going to put this out there, we are in a recession. And I've been saying this for several months, and people have looked at me and said, no, the president hasn't said. I'm like, I don't care, he's a fine fellow and all that. He has one job. Here's my job. My job is to tell you we're in a recession. And what we're doing now is going to pave the way for the next 6 months. And I will also tell you this, that if you are doing some of the things we're talking about now, you are going to land well ahead of your colleagues, your competition, your peers by staying the course and making sure, that you're taking the appropriate actions. So here's the data part, right? So we know is a defined prolonged period of economic downturn, widespread and significant, lasting 6 months or longer. In June of this year, the US inflation rate hit a 40-year high of 9.1%, like 40 years, right? That's not my entire life, but it's a significant part of my life. When you think about 9.1% inflation, the GDP has shrank by an annual rate of 1.6%, right? So what our output is. And in the second quarter, it shrank by another 0.9%, so nearly a full percentage point. And then to counter some of that, we've all been seeing, and our mortgage professionals here in the room know more about this than I ever can pretend to. We are seeing the Fed start to bump interest rates, and we've been watching that happen for the last several months. We're recording this now, and it is November. And so we just had the most recent one a couple of weeks ago. There was one before that, and I believe there was one even, before that. So I think we're in our third interest rate bump now. Technically, then, by the way I look at things, by definition, we are in a recession. Now, why do economists not fully come out and say that in many cases? Because they don't want widespread panic, right? So this is all about metering messaging, and we know this as small business owners. So it's about making sure that we're talking about the real economic impact, but then also, as you see a lot of pundits doing, they'll pull back and be like, yeah, but there's other things. And there are a number of factors that go into a recession. But those are the 2 points that I watch, which is, again, the GDP and how it's declining compared to what's happening with interest rates on the other side. So
Yeah.
there's your economics lesson for today.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really clear too. So I don't know if it's fair to ask this, but if you're, we all kind of feel that we've been in a recession, although people haven't acknowledged it and the powers that be. But how far into it do you think we are? Is that something I can ask?
Yeah, I looked at my crystal ball this morning, and I pulled the tarot cards, and I read my tea leaves, and so I know exactly where. It's a fair question, Cyndi, because it's something, it's like the pandemic, right? So we all wanted to know how long it was going to last.
Right.
We all wanted to know where we were in it. Are we halfway in it? Are we further along? Is this going to end soon? When are we going to get back to, just as humans, our brains are constantly trying to find common ground. Where are we going to get back to things that we knew? What I'm telling people is, right now, we've been meandering through it for about 6 months at this point. And what I'm telling my clients is, have your belt tight and be really smart for the next 18 to 24 months. You're going to see changes happening, in that 12 to 18 month range. Things will start to feel different, they'll start opening up a bit. And by that 24 month, mark, you'll be, oh, okay, we're kind of back to normal, right? Whatever normal is. And I hate that word, but anyhow, you get the idea. So I'm telling folks, fasten your seatbelts right now, be really smart and strategic, be super smart with how you're handling the finances of your business, and be ready, to be extra lean in your business for the next 18 months in particular.
Right. And I appreciated at our event that you mentioned, staying on top of living within your means, right?
Yeah, 100%. And with our businesses, it's the same thing. Now is not the time to take on debt. Now is also not the time to completely eliminate your cash reserves to pay off your debt. It may make some sense to carry debt and cash flow yourself on some minimum payments. I love it. I'm seeing thumbs up and pew pew pews at me. So thank you for that. Now is not the time to be throwing a lot of cash at debt. It's going to be more important for you to be liquid as a business owner and also as head of families, keeping as much cash as you can, and not getting crazy when it comes to the expenses. If there's a piece of equipment in your business that needs to be replaced, be smart about it. While a lot of my clients will pay cash when it comes to new equipment purchases in their business, anybody who's purchasing something in the next 12 months, we're taking a look at what are the best options for financing, and knowing that we're going to come out the other side of this, at some point in the future, and then have a plan in place to pay it off at that point. But definitely, watch the money in your business right now, and don't be spending extra heavy. Maintain the things that but also look at a critical eye with some of your expenses. I shared at the talk that I had a client a few years ago who, man, she arm wrestled me for months on some expenses in her profit and loss statement. And one of them was this software that she had gotten. We've all gone to the conferences and there's a special deal. And if you sign up today, you get this deal. And she had signed up for it and she had not used that software program in a couple of years, but she was still paying for it. And I was like, what in the heck? There's a couple grand, we can pull out of your budget. And she's like, yeah, but if I wanted to add it back, I'd have to spend more, close to $5,000. I'm like, but you've not used it, and net over the last 2 years, you're down $4,000 already. I don't know how much longer you're going to go with this, right? So really take a look at your expenses, and be clear about where you're making investments in your business, and are those things that you're utilizing to their capacity? And if the answer is no or not really, then get real with yourself. Now is goal setting time of the year. So get real with yourself and figure out, am I really going to do that? Or should I just cut that one off and, and focus on some other things?
We all need a Debbie in our head to help us with those decisions that, they might look real obvious to you, but when we're sitting in our shoes and having already made that decision and needing to justify it, it's not always easy. It's not always clear.
No, it's not, and one of the things I say, and when I say it, people will look at me kind of like the dogs do sometimes, huh? What are you talking about, right? But I'll say, the thing about having a coach in your business, right, whether it's me or whether it's someone else, is, and this is where the head tilt comes in, I don't care, right? I care a lot about you and your success, but I don't care.
You're not attached.
I'm not attached to the stories, all the things, the sacred cows. I'm not, I am the objective outside third party who a business owner needs to look at their business with them. And look, if it is a sacred cow, we will keep her as such. Now, eventually, if we work together long enough, typically the sacred cow goes away. But I'm also smart enough as a coach to recognize that people have different things, right? So I'm not going to, quote unquote, move the cheese on the first day and make everything super uncomfortable. We're going to try and start with some, what I consider easy, consistent wins that will gain the business owner's confidence, and then let us go on to moving into higher level or deeper conversations.
Well, so you don't pry their hands, is what I'm hearing you say. You give them the opportunity to just breathe and say, okay, I trust you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what are 3 key elements that generate revenue.
Yeah. So right now is going to be a great time for everyone to focus on the 3 C's, which are clarity of message and action, consistency of message and action, and then a commitment to connect. So the 3 C's, and I'll talk a little bit about how they kind of, plug in for you, are clarity of your message and action. So what you're saying and what you're doing, consistency of message and action, what you're saying and what you're doing, and then the commitment to connect. So if we think about, clarity of message and action, have you, how many times have you been at a networking event versus, whether it's in person or online, and you meet somebody and they walk away, and maybe Cyndi and I are talking afterwards, and I say, did you talk to that gal, Becky? She, sat at my table or whatever. And Cindy's like, no, but I saw you talking to her. What does she do? And then there's that moment where you pause and go, I'm not really sure, but boy, I liked her. She had great energy, like, all the things. Like, I really liked Becky, but Becky's message was a little bit off. And so when it comes to clarity, stop right now and think, like, if I was asked what you do, could I turn it around so that people understood quickly, right? Or would it get kind of messed up? And, my default, and I tend to be kind of a smart aleck, is if I don't really know what you do, I'll say, here's the thing, I'm going to let Cyndi explain what she does, but I really think she's a spy, right? So like, that's my kind of tongue in cheek way of like, I don't know what you do exactly. Not that that's the case with Cyndi, but y'all get the idea, right?
Right.
So be clear in your message, right? So now is the time, go back and look at what is your elevator commercial, right? We've been doing these online. I know some people have even admitted to me, I kind of phoned it in, but now as you're coming back out and doing things in person, make sure your message is solid and it is consistent every single time. So clarity of message, who you are, what you do. Cyndi.
And I put in a plug for quick connect statements, is what we're calling them, exceptional connections.
Yes.
And in the old days, we called those taglines.
Yes.
And I'm just really passionate about that right now. And I actually at our last November event, had people text them into me, and I'm creating memes, and we're going to do this whole social media thing. But what Debbie is saying is so spot on. We need to all be clear ourselves, because if we're not clear, we're not going to be able to communicate that to others. And then also, if I know Debbie's quick connect statement, which I imagine has something to do with having women keeping the money they want, right? I'm passionate for supporting women to keep more of the money they make. That's what I would guess Debbie would say, right?
Yep.
So then if I know that, I can easily introduce her to somebody.
Right. And the thing to remember, and yes, your quick connect statements are brilliant. And I love the fact that you've distilled it down, Cyndi, so people really have to condense what they're saying. And we have to catch ourselves. We have to also, I think right now, coming back into the world where we are, is we have to turn back on our ears. I've been noticing at some events that I've been attending, people are not good at following instructions. Like, there's always an element of people, and I fall in that category too, where I'm not following the instructions. But we have to start turning our ears back on and understanding what's being asked of us, even back to what I was saying in the beginning, right? By a potential client, when you're at an event. We don't need the people around us to know how we do what we do. They don't need to know all the magic that's in, my bags of tricks. We need them to know what we do and the result that happens. Like, those are the two pieces that we need people to know. They don't, I want, when I'm introduced to Tamara and I'm talking about, and Cyndi introduces me and says, Debbie's the gal who, guides women business owners to keep more of the money they make. And Tamara says, oh my gosh, I need more of that in my life. How do you do that? Right? I want Tamara to be asking that question, right? She's a potential client in that conversation, or, however that works for you. So be really clear and make sure that you're turning those ears back on again. So clarity of message, and then clarity of action too, right? So making sure that what you say you're going to do, you're going to do. Always, right? I remind clients that, if you're late on invoicing, you have just planted a subtle sabotaging message to your client who is now wondering, what else are you not getting done in a timely manner? And I remember when that was brought up to me one time, I thought, oh gosh, there's enough challenges that we put in front of ourselves in business, things that we can control, things that we can't control. But this is one I can control, right? So if I say that I'm going to follow up with you in 2 days, then I better follow up with you in 2 days. How many times, and I've been guilty of it too, where I've said, I'll follow up with you in a week, and then something happens, life happens, whatever. And then the week passes, and then we're into the second week. And then I'm starting to feel really bad about myself. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, Danny's going to remember that I didn't follow up with her. And gosh, now it's 3 weeks and I keep seeing her card there on my desk, and I'm just starting to panic and freak out. And then I pick up the phone and I call, and Danny's just grateful that I followed up, right? So now we don't have to apologize all over ourselves, on something, where I said, hey, I'll check in with you in a couple, 3 weeks, Danny. But if it definitely has, a deadline and impact, in Danny's business and mortgages, like, deadlines matter. Like, if she says that a file is going to be done, at a certain time because a client needs to close so that they can move into their house, they don't care what is happening behind the scenes, just as long as they know that when they arrive, everything is ready for them to sign. And in, a 24, 48-hour period, whatever it is, their home is theirs. Or the money that they're looking for from their loan is theirs. So make sure that you are clear about actions and messages. The second C is consistency, and that's of message and action. And if we go back to thinking, how many times have we all been at events, and we may have even been guilty of it ourselves, where our messaging is inconsistent, and it kind of gives people around us some whiplash, right? They kind of are like, well, wait a minute, I thought you were the person who did the thing with the stuff. I didn't realize you did this other thing too. Like, so the beautiful part about entrepreneurs is we have lots of interests. And so make sure, though, that when you are in your communities, whatever they look like, that you are absolutely consistent with the message that you're putting out there, so that they know how to find you. Again, if we start changing our messaging, right, talking about too many things that we do, this goes back to the old, a confused mind says no. And so if we're putting too many things out there, like, oh yeah, I can do 54 things for you, versus really drilling in on the one thing that your customers are saying they need, you're going to be losing people. So be consistent with the message and be consistent with the action, right? So if networking is going to be part of your business development strategy, then show up consistently. Be in the communities where either your clients are hanging out together, or the people who work with and serve your clients are hanging out together, and keep showing up. And P.S., if you wait until business slows down and you're starting to get desperate, everyone else is going to know it. And if you say the thing, which has been said to me over however many years, when I'd see somebody who was super active in the networking world, man, they were out and they were doing the thing, and then they disappeared for a while, and you'd be like, gosh, I wonder where'd they go, right? And then they appear 9 months later, and it's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh gosh, things were just so busy, I couldn't get to these things, but now things have slowed down, so now I'm back.
Yeah.
That's kind of a yikes, sort of, like, I saw everyone's
Right.
face go, ooh, I don't like that, right? And so the thing to remember about consistency, in action, especially if it comes to networking or, your content, social media, newsletters, whatever it is, be consistent. If you're going to be part of a community, then go to that community. Now, it might mean that, things in your business will ebb and flow. And so it might be that, you can't go every month, but maybe you're going every other month, right? That's still consistent. Oh, and P.S., because we now have so many ways to connect online, you can still be making appearances in people's virtual houses, so they don't even know that you weren't at last month's event. They just saw you this month and they were happy to see you and they love what you're doing. So be consistent with your messaging, what you're doing, who you're serving, and then actions, when it comes to your marketing. And then finally make that commitment to connect. That is our third one. And this is the part where, if you're in a place where getting together in person for coffee is feasible, then let's start getting back on that program. If you're comfortable with it and you're there. If you're not ready to do in-person meetings like that, then keep it on Zoom. I do a fair number. Part of it is geography. It's not super convenient where I live now. So, I'll do virtual coffee with people, right? It's a lot easier and it's respectful of everyone's time, but I'm still having this great interaction and this great opportunity to connect. So make a commitment right now. I'm thinking of a client of mine who is in mortgages, and we've been talking for the last year about some things that she needed to do inside her business to get ready for what we anticipated was coming. We didn't know how far and all the things, but if she was just waiting for the phone to ring right now for all the mortgages, like she was, a year ago, she'd have a different outlook. And right now she's just being super proactive, looking through the champions, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but looking through the champions list that she has and being really strategic about how she wants to stay in front of these people and connect. And it doesn't always have to be about business, right? We can have a conversation to connect that has to do with, hey, I just really want to hear, how you are, what's going on. I know you've got like a kid that's almost ready to graduate, I think, if I remember right. And it's okay to not have like all the details, but people want to be asked about what's happening in their life. And honestly, there's a lot of people who are really uncomfortable and kind of scared right now. And so the more that you can be this really calming presence to them and very reassuring, and interested, as Cyndi knows this, being interested in their work and their world, they're going to remember you. And trust me, you don't have to say, hey, we should be strategic partners. Let's figure out how to let the relationships build for a while. Let that organically happen, but make a commitment to connect with people. And if yours is phone calls, then make it happen. If it's 2 phone calls a week, then it's 2 intentional phone calls a week. If it's handwritten notes, then make sure there's time on your calendar that says handwritten note time, so it's in there. If it's just Cyndi, you're so great at this. We've all talked about this. I think every event it comes up. You are a great person at just picking up the phone and calling people. And whether there is a giant spreadsheet of fun in your hip pocket somewhere that helps give you those prompts, or whether it is a combination of that and just an internal prompting, like, that's somebody I should probably reach out to. Whatever it is, you are so consistent and people know this about you. And each of us who are on here have the same opportunity. So the 3 key things that are going to generate revenue are clarity of message and action, the consistency of the message and action that you put out, and then making that commitment to connect. However that looks for you, you get to define that.
In essence, have a plan and stick with it.
Oh, I do like a good plan.
Put a bow on that one.
I do like a good plan.
Right? I love it. Okay, so we're about the time where we want to open up, but I want to just kind of get into one other thing here where we talk about, help us understand why, as entrepreneurs, business owners, we often feel like we're spinning our wheels, and how can we get traction in days like we're in today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So another fun fact about me, I am fascinated by positive psychology. I am fascinated by human potential. And I have read pages and pages and pages and pages, thousands of pages over my life about the how impactful what's going on between our ears is to the actions that we know we should be doing, but for some reason we're just not getting them done, right? So what happens is when we feel like we're spinning our wheels, what we're actually doing is it's avoidance of some sort. I don't know what you're avoiding. You likely don't yet either, but there's something that you're avoiding, right? And so when you get into that overwhelmed thing, you feel like you're shutting down, or you just keep like picking up things and touching them like 15 times, but nothing is ever getting done in the business. This is a sign of overwhelm. this is a sign that you need to find a touchstone, whatever that is for you, and take a deep breath and then pick your thing. I don't care what that one thing is, but pick it. It could be something as simple as, I am going to put away the 15 pencils that are on my desk. This is a task that is driving me nuts. I have all these pencils on my desk. It's not a hard task, but sometimes a little win is all we need to get us to the next thing. And then the next thing. The challenge that many entrepreneurs have is, and I see this a lot when I ask a client who is ready to hire a bookkeeper, or thinks they are getting ready to hire a bookkeeper. They're like, well, if I could just do a few more things, then I'll be ready to hire the bookkeeper. And this is the whole getting ready to get ready syndrome. And there is nothing better for a business owner than to just simply take action. So if you're feeling like things are a little bit spun out for you, whether it's now or at some point in the future, one of the things that I find is, in that time, we will be so overwhelmed that we will look for every little thing that doesn't necessarily need to be done. And we will go work partway on all those things to avoid doing the big thing that we need to do. And so the touchstone that I give my clients is, whenever you're feeling that kind of spun out place, hit a hard stop, shut off your computer, or at least put the lid to your laptop down, set yourself a timer for 15 minutes and make a list. Make a list of the 3 to 5 things that you know in your business you need to do every single day in order to gain forward momentum. It's okay if every day looks a little bit different, but it will have the same elements, right? So as an example, if I'm thinking of, for myself, like my touch point plan, following up with my champions, I don't do that in the morning. Right? My morning time is specifically for clients. It's for that, brainier work. It's for all the things spreadsheet related, right? It's all things that require pretty intense concentration to give. My action, my daily right action of follow up, connect, calls to connect, that kind of thing. Those things are happening in the afternoon after 3.
I think she froze. Are you there, Debbie? Well, hopefully I'm moving. Everybody moving? Okay, I think Debbie's,
she'll be back.
Yeah, she'll be back in a second. I love what she said. That is so brilliant, because we can catch ourselves. I'll just talk for a second and maybe she can jump back in again.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, you froze for a second there.
I know, it's so weird because I could hear you, but you were all frozen too. And then my internet came up and said I'm unstable. So yeah, but that's probably true in some degree. So bottom line is, come up with your list of daily right actions and stay committed to them, and prioritize them so that the daily right actions, whatever they are for you, are also scheduled at a time that it really is the best time for you. Right? If you're like me, afternoons are better for those things that are, more nurturing, more relational, as opposed to the critical thinking part of my brain. That's why I move those things to the afternoon. But you guys adjust your own schedules and work with your own calendars.
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, let's go ahead and open up, because I think this is just a great opportunity to kind of have a conversation about some of the things that we've been talking about. So feel free to unmute yourself. And I think Debbie froze again, but go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question, and you can put it in the chat box as well. So if anybody has any thoughts, Danny, go for it.
I hope that you can hear me, Debbie. Oh, I would assume that she can. I'm wondering at this time, with everything that you've been speaking about, where you see an opportunity.
So while she may need to jump back in. We'll see what happens, but let's share about, so hold your question there, Danny. Yeah, she's going to jump back in. Share what Debbie shared, or we've been talking about, that really has impacted you, that you thought, okay, that's something I need to focus on. I need to think about. I need to, it just hit home. Anybody have anything that we've shared? Danny?
I think when she spoke about overwhelm and the fact that when you touch a bunch of things versus finishing the most important task, just to feel that activity and to feel that, okay, I'm doing a lot, and to really focus on those most important tasks first, and whether you clear your desk of 10 pens and pencils, and just to get that small win to give you motivation to move forward really struck with me.
Yeah, that really resonates with, procrastination is a human thing. It's a real thing that us humans go through. So go ahead and ask your question again, Danny, for now that Debbie's back.
Sorry about the internet, guys.
Well, that's the way it's, we persevere.
That's right.
Pivot. There's another favorite word, pivot. Well, speaking, I loved everything that you were sharing, and I'm glad you got to hear about what resonated most with me. And what I'd like you to speak on is, where do you see an opportunity for business right now?
Yeah, so the opportunity is in showing up, right? Don't be the pull the blanket up over your head and hope this all goes away. Be the person who is out in front in your industry, in your space, just having real, legitimate, loving conversations. There are going to be a lot of people right now who are going to retract, right? As far as a recession goes, they're going to get scared. They're going to have convinced themselves that I can't grow my business. If we go back and look at the data, small businesses, all of us here, small businesses are the most nimble and most able to make quick adjustments during times of change. So take advantage of that, right? So what I would say to you, Danny, is, make sure as a small business owner that you are showing up, that people are seeing you. Like I'm seeing you, Danny, you are online, you are talking in your space, you are making sure that people know that you are open for business and things are here. And though you might be hearing otherwise, it is all not doom and gloom. You can buy houses, you can get refinanced, you can pull equity, like all the things, like it's all still there, right? And there are good options that are out there. So make sure that from an opportunity standpoint, that you get a chance to share as much good news to the people who you would serve or the people who influence them as much as you can right now. I think that's where the greatest opportunity is going to lie, is the difference between the people who are going to do well during this time and the people who are really going to struggle. The people who are struggling are going to be the ones who retract and go very inward and get stuck in their spin, like we were talking about, keep thinking they're going to get ready. They'll take action after the recession is over. Like they're going to have all this talk track going on, and the opportunities are going to be there for us. And in fact, it's going to open up a really wide lane, for those of you who are willing to show up consistently and make sure that people know that you're there as a resource.
We really are coming full circle, because I remember our conversation on March 10th, 2020, and we were encouraging people to stay engaged. This is not a time to go to sleep. And that's what I hear you saying right now as well, Debbie.
100%.
Right?
100%. It is easy. Look, I am all for, if it gets overwhelming and you need to have a pity party, go for it. But give yourself a time frame, right? If I'm going to have a complete freak out and meltdown, I give myself a day, 24 hours, that's it. And I don't, and I can catastrophize and I can do all the things for 24 hours. And at the end of those 24 hours, put your shoes on, and get back into the business of doing what you do. But don't get stuck in it.
Yes.
And it is, the parallel between where we are right now economically, Cyndi, to your point, and the parallel to what was happening in March of 2020 is very similar. So this is going to feel very familiar for many of us. The right actions that you were doing at the beginning of the pandemic, and most of you, I think on this call, if not all of you, continue doing throughout the entire pandemic, keep doing those things now, because many of your peers, your competitors, are going to start drifting off to the side, and it's going to open up a great opportunity for you.
Yep, I love that. Chuck, did you want to share something or ask a question?
Oh, I was just going to remark, Debbie is so on the mark here with this conversation that because, I think what I see with small business owners is they get caught up in all the gloom and doom
Mhm.
that you read about. But I think what I use is, commerce always happens. It never really goes away. And like you said, Debbie, if you show up, you're going to participate in that commerce, whatever level it's at. And I think that's the key, and of course, as Debbie always talk about, keep an eye on your cash flow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
That's
thanks
just
for
key in small business.
yeah. I think it was I think it was one of the memes that I gave you, Cyndi, when we were talking about getting ready for the talk. But, it's this idea that the money is still there, everyone. It's all still there. It's just we're going to have to be more consistent and dedicated about how we show up as business owners when we're quote unquote looking for it. But it's all still there. People are still, to Chuck's point, commerce is still happening. People are purchasing things, all the things people, Tamara, for you, there are companies that are still going to be doing branded promotional products, logo wear. They're going to be looking for items for their staff and their teams, right? They're going to need that. People are still going to be shopping for the holidays, right? So all the things are still there. We just have to make sure that we stay consistent so that those people show up.
Yeah, it's such an encouraging message. It really is. Tamara, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just need to get my mechanic to work on my machine. We got the part got put in, and now we have another thing that creeped up.
Yeah.
So this machine is almost 20 years old. So here's that thing. Do I get a new one, or do we keep on chasing down the problems? So I'm not able to do the logo work, and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
But I've been doing my other sewing stuff. I can do straight sewing,
right.
But it's not as profitable as doing the embroidery. So, and then all the things that have changed in my life, going from empty nest to a full house with my son and my 4 grandkids here.
Yeah.
And then I can spin, but I'm not going to spin.
No spinning today.
No spinning
today.
So the thing is that do I pull the equity out of my house, because I have a lot of equity in the house, and get the new machine? But can I do that when I'm going through the other stuff? And am I going to have him sign a quick deed saying he has no interest in this house, or do I have to wait?
Right. Yeah. So those are all like ginormo questions. And I know that we have a very qualified mortgage professional on the line. And what I would recommend is that the two of you have a follow-up sidebar conversation, because I know many people that Danny has worked with who have had questions similar, about do I wait, pros, cons, the logistics of it, right? How do we make all this happen? And she's definitely the person who not only will give you sound advice, but then if now is not the right time for that, is fantastic at, again, following up, showing up, seeing how things are going, right? You got enough on your plate, and her job is to keep, loving and nurturing you through the process to see, have you attended to, let's say there are 3 things that need to happen before she would say, now's the time to do that. And so the things that are in your control. So I would really encourage the two of you to, circle in after this and use a trusted professional on that one.
Well, you said it so well, Debbie, because getting good counsel right now is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing is, through exceptional connections, this, Cyndi, you have built an amazing network. And so there are resources for everyone. And this is the thing that you do so well, right? For people who are listening now or people who will listen later, if there's a resource you're looking for, Cyndi she's our point person. And so when we're looking for, hey, I need to have a conversation about this, I need to have a conversation about that, it's not uncommon that I get those kind of inquiries, and it may not be exactly in my lane, But because Cyndi and I say have such a great relationship, I'm going to say to her, you know what, let's do that introduction. Let's have a conversation and let's see if I can be the next like jumping off point for this person, whatever, and to point them in the right direction. Right. So it might be Tamara's asking a question about, you know, do I invest in my equipment, right? So like she just brought up, do I invest in my equipment, which means I'm going to need to take some debt. And in order to do that, I'm probably going to need to go to my home. Now, again, I'm not the mortgage person. And again, family dynamic and, you know, the legalities, that's not my deal. But she might ask the question that starts with, do I invest in my business and do I take on debt, or do I keep, you know, paying these smaller amounts to keep my piece of equipment going? And then I would give advice on that, and then would do the handoff to the next part, you know, which is what you all just heard me do, which is to say, I think, you know, that you need to talk to a really good mortgage professional and understand like the ins and outs and what really is the best opportunity for you. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because it's not an easy answer. It's,
Thank you.
you have to really look into it and
Yeah.
seek good counsel and pray about it. And
Yeah.
but you know, it is a good question though. That's the important thing. We
Right.
need to be questioning and asking those kind of things about our businesses and timing and all of that. Well, we're at a little past 1, and so I want to respect everybody's time. But Debbie, I just want to give you an opportunity to give some closing remarks. And then for those who want to work with Debbie, I will put her contact information in the description below. But Debbie, share how people can work with you, and just end with a closing remark, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So I would say, you know, my standard invitation is, you know, if you are in a place in your business where you are feeling that you're ready to make an investment, to have a coach work with you to shore up business practices, to make sure that you really understand the profitability, the pricing, to help you look at the marketing, your messaging, the consistency of it, to work to understand, you know, the cash flow projections, then I would love to have a conversation with you. You can send me an email, debbie@debbiepage.com. I am super happy to do a 45-minute complimentary conversation where we can talk about the challenges that you're facing or the questions you have about your business. No obligations, just really a chance for us to connect and then see, you know, what working together might look like if it feels like it's appropriate. So that would be the invitation, you know, for people who are listening. And then, you know, the thing that I would just close with is, you know, as you're navigating the coming weeks and months, don't overcomplicate the work that you do. The simplest action is usually the right action. And when we start making things harder than they need to be, that tends to be one of the indicators that we're avoiding things. So don't make your journey any harder than it needs to be. And as one of my mentors always says, keep the main thing, and you're gonna come through this just fine.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you again, Debbie, for sharing with our November at our in-person or not our November in-person event, and then today. So many wonderful nuggets that you've given us. So thank you, everybody. Remember to make every connection an exceptional connection. And we're not going to be meeting in December. My father's turning 90, and I have an extra couple days to spend with him in Florida. But do sign up, and we invite you to be a part of our Tuesday, January 10th event. We'll be doing our annual practice of declaring your word for the year. So thank you, everybody. Take care and have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you,
Bye,
Debbie.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Annie, Judy, glad you can join us.
Yep. Have a great Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Judy, check out the, I'm going to have this recording on our YouTube channel, and so you can check it out later.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Diane, for joining us. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Tammy,
Bye.
Cameron, Chuck.
Bye, all.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, Chuck.
How you doing, Danny? You're
Oh, I'll-
been on my heart to, I'll give you a call. We need to catch up, girl.
Well, that would be lovely. I guess we probably have to end this recording, so it'd be better. I'm available.
Oh, I'm
waiting.
sorry. I needed to end the, sorry, thank you.